ThekarmicDF.
What is up, besties? It's your girl, the Karmic DF, back to you again with another video. This time we're going to talk about spiritual awakening, but from a more psychological approach, so that it's more palatable, so that you really understand what's going on, so that you're not as scared when you're going through it. Because like I'm seeing right away, and I know I'm going to bring this up throughout the video, is like a spiral staircase. And a lot of us, as we're going through this spiritual awakening, we often think that we're going backwards, but in reality, we are reviewing, revisiting, and going over things. So in this video, we're going to take a look at how spiritual awakenings work. We're going to bring it down to a more 3D approach so that you can understand why it's happening, what's going on, and what to do about it, so that you're not getting bombarded as you're looking for the truth of what's going on with you, right? Because in the beginning of it, and I was guilty of this too, you'll want to go to like multiple spiritual YouTubes, Facebook support groups, all of that to try and understand what's going on with you. But in reality, it boils down to your own experience, and you can get tips and tricks from every person that's been through it, but only you know what you're going through. And so this is going to be more of a why it's happening, so that you can go, okay, and I validate myself while I'm going through this, and then you can begin to move forward without, significant fear, and without thinking that you're crazy, and without feeling like something's inherently wrong with you. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional. No spiritual advisor is. So if you think you need to go to the doctor, then obviously go to the doctor. Do that for peace of mind, if nothing else. But like I said, we're just going to kind of dive into the why this is happening, how it's completely normal, how it's actually a lot more 3D than you think that it is. It's a lot more like, it's kind of like therapy on steroids that you're doing for yourself. So we're going to get into that, the hows, the whys, make it a little more palatable so that you can understand. And yeah, we'll just get right into it. So if you enjoy these videos, please leave a like. It really helps my channel, supports me. Thank you so much. Leave comments down below if you want to know more. I could do a part 2. I could cover ego death, stuff like that. And as always, if you like my page, please subscribe, hit that notification bell. And as always, let's get into it. So from most of my perspective with clients, with people that I know, spiritual awakening usually comes from either something really traumatic happening and you've kind of reached a breaking point of like, that's it, things got to change. Or you might meet someone who inspires you, and then all of a sudden you're going down your own spiritual awakening. You didn't see it coming. So it could come from either or, although it could come from a myriad of things. Again, there are no strict rules to spiritual awakenings or spirituality. There are just things that you can expect. So don't limit yourself to a box. It might be different for you than it is for someone else. And that's one of the things you have to be mindful of, is that everybody's path is different. And so if you watch a video like this and you're like, oh, I resonate with 75% of it, but I haven't gone through a couple of other things. Well, maybe it's not meant for you on this path of life, or maybe you just haven't gotten there yet. So don't gaslight yourself when you're watching videos like this and being like, well, I don't fit all of it. Well, you may fit some of it later on, or you may not need to do that in this lifetime. So just kind of roll with the punches, as you will. But I'm immediately being shown like a waterfall, and it's kind of like, yeah, because now I'm seeing a surfer. It's like you have to follow the waves of what it is that your soul actually wants to go through. So you may have signed up without knowing that you're going to, purge all of the old history of family wounds that kept repeating for generation to generation, but you decided to come into this life to heal that. And so what's going on in a nutshell is a spiritual awakening is basically you coming home to yourself. Because I want you to think of like a 7-year-old child, and let's say that they have like a healthy home, healthy, just lifestyle up until this moment, right? A 7-year-old is very imaginative. They're very creative. They have a lot of dreams. They come up with some wild shit. They say wild things. They want to create. I think I said that already. And they have a lot of questions, right? They want to know about the world. They want to understand it. Well, that is who we are inherently. We just kind of grow up. And unfortunately, due to society, when we grow up, we have to grow out of what's childish, which is not true at all. It's part of who we are. Think about imagination, right? Like we mock people that are like, oh, you can't do that. That's not realistic, right? But in reality, without imagination, there would be no creation, right? Like we wouldn't have these cell phones if someone didn't imagine connecting with other people without a wire, connecting with other people from across the world without being physically with them. If you had asked someone decades prior, is that possible? Before the phone came out, they'd be like, no, you're psychotic, right? So what we're doing essentially is we are removing all of society's limitations. And so a lot of the limitations also come from what has happened to us in childhood, what has happened to us growing up, what has happened to us in relationships. So in order to get back to the core of us, who we are before the world kind of pushed us into a mold and box, we have to release all of these layers that we believe to be us, but are actually just layers that have been placed on us by society to tell us who we're supposed to be. So for instance, say that you come from, and I'm speaking from experience, say you come from a background where your family wasn't well off, and that has been a generational thing. And so money has never come easy to your family, and thus it hasn't come easy to you. And so you have this limiting belief that you could never have a lot of money because your parents didn't have a lot of money and their parents didn't have a lot of money. And so you have this wound around money because you believe that it's only for rich people, it's never going to be for you. And so when you're going through these spiritual awakenings, what you're essentially doing from a psychological standpoint is you're removing all of these limitations that society has told you were your limitations. And so let's say you have a wound around relationships, right? This is a timeless video, so whenever you see it, take it as it resonates. But right now, Venus is in retrograde, and so you can also accumulate this with astrology as well. When planets are retrograde, that's internal. So Venus is the planet of love, and so right now, the collective is, they're kind of rethinking love and their structures around love, whether that's love with family, love with relationships, love with friendships. A lot of us are kind of rethinking, like, well, what did the parenting dynamic look like for us as children, and how did that contribute to what we accept and take in relationships? Spirituality is really just digging into the subconscious. They're bringing me to how I tell my therapist that I therapize myself. But that's really what it is. It's like you'll get to a point where therapy is more just you being like, hey, am I okay? And they're like, yeah, you're okay. And it's weird. Like, I highly recommend still going to therapy, especially if you're going through a spiritual awakening, because you'll be like, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Am I crazy? It's nice to have someone that's like, no, you're revisiting old wounds and you're transforming them into something differently. And with this Venus retrograde in particular, which is going to come in handy for a lot of people going through a spiritual awakening, I went through the love part in dynamics of relationships, and I had already gone through this particular wound time and time again, because sometimes these wounds take more than one cycle. That's why I brought up the staircase. It's kind of like a circle staircase where you feel like you're going backwards, but in reality, you keep revisiting old things to see it from a higher and a higher perspective until you're ready to let it go, because it depends on the level of trauma that you've been through or the level of limitations that have been set upon you. It's harder to unlearn those things. And so with a spiritual awakening, you're going to come across old wounds that are going to come up for you. It could be something like your parents didn't want you to take a chance on yourself doing something big because it wasn't realistic, because you came from poverty, and so you set your standards to something real low, right? You decided that your dream was going to be that, I'll just speak for myself here, I thought that I would just be a manager for retail for the rest of my life. That was a goal for me. And like looking back, I'm like, and I'm not shitting on anybody that's possibly doing that, but all I'm saying is, why not ask for more out of life? You really think you came here to just not be happy? That's the whole point of a spiritual awakening, because you have to get rid of these layers of all of these voices that have become your inner voice, all of these moments in history that started to begin to define you, right? Like I've talked about in prior videos where we constantly date the same person, but it's like different skin, same attitude, same behavioral patterns. It's because we need to learn about ourselves first. And with a spiritual awakening, you are learning about yourself. Where did this owie come from? You know, like why do I keep attracting emotionally unavailable people? And then all of a sudden you're going to get these emotions coming up and you're like, why am I crying about something from like 13 years ago? But it's actually a wound that's in your deep subconscious mind that you hadn't had the opportunity to actually transform. And so now it's time for it to come up, to be healed and to be released, because bringing science into this, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And so if at 13 years old you had this traumatizing event in terms of relationships happen to you, and in that moment in time you were in a survival state, so you couldn't actually respond, you couldn't cry it out, you couldn't throw a fit that you wanted to throw. And so all you did was you pushed it down. And so that has now become a part of you because it's still in there. And so with the spiritual awakening, what's happening is it's kind of like I'm seeing a volcano. It's like all of this stuff that you've pushed down that you think is a part of you is now coming up to be looked at, to be released, and to be healed. And to know that you're not going crazy and to know that you're on track, we'll go into the woo-woo parts of it, where the biggest things that you will, if you pay attention, see, that's the problem, is like, if you're a very logical person, which I used to be very logical, I had to get rid of that, you're going to kind of have a battle at the beginning, because like your gifts are going to start to come on. First of all of us are psychic to some extent. Have you ever had that gut feeling of don't hang out with that person, don't go to that place, don't do that thing? That's intuition. That's claircognasance, that's clairsentience. I had a feeling, I had a knowing. So we are all inherently psychic. It's about getting rid of these layers of programming and believing that we're less than, we can't do this, we can't do that, and going back to, again, the childlike state, the imaginative state. And so when you're going through this, you may see a lot of angel numbers, and that is your spirit team trying to communicate like, hey, we're here, maybe you should look up this number. If you feel like you should be looking up this number, like you might be seeing 444 a lot. 444 is your angels telling you that they're with you during this time. You might hear music in your head that you hadn't thought of in years. Like it could have been a song from like your childhood, but think about the lyrics. Don't let it just be like, oh, I love that song, and just move on with your life. They're trying to connect with you. So the angel numbers, you could see dragonflies, butterflies, crows. So keep an eye out for feathers. Keep an eye out for things that have spiritual meaning to them, because then you know that you're a part of something bigger. This is where I'm going to go to woo-woo a little bit, but this is where you know you're connected to something bigger. This is where you know that you're not crazy and you're not alone and something's going on. You're going to see a lot of repeating numbers, and that was kind of how I kept getting through. It was just like, oh, look, angel numbers again. I never see normal numbers on the clock. It's always angel numbers. So like it helped me know that I was a part of something bigger, and having these songs play in my head that were like uplifting songs. Like I used to hear Fix You by Coldplay a lot in my head when I was going through something heavy. And to this day, I will still hear that song if it's time for me to purge something, because right now we're going through a full moon. A lot of people are purging right now. But again, if you see this at a different time, just know that on full moons, you are more likely to purge old wounds. And that's really what's going on in the beginning of the spiritual awakening. We're coming home to ourselves. And in order to come home to ourselves so that we could get back to that creative, imaginative child while still being an adult, because it's possible to do both. It's what you're supposed to be. You're supposed to have fun and live life while also being an adult and assuming responsibilities. But a lot of times we believe that it's not possible because we've been through so much and we don't know how to unravel that. And so basically spiritual awakening is just kind of like, it's like therapy on steroids. Like, I don't know if I have addicts or people that have been through, maybe they got a DUI, went through the system, but if you've ever heard of like intensive outpatient program where it's like you got to learn about yourself, you have homework, you got stuff to do, that's pretty much what spiritual awakening is. It's like if your therapist was following you around 24/7 going, oh, but what is that making you learn about yourself? How does that make you feel? What is this teaching you about your childhood? It's like that, except you're doing it to yourself. So honestly, be proud of yourself that you can do this, because as much as I love therapy, I'm so pro therapy. I still go to make sure that I never get too spiritual and not enough logic. But it's kind of like therapy on speed, because you could have spent, I'm speaking for myself, I had been in therapy for years, but then once my spiritual awakening hit me, it was different, because you're the one that's kind of running the show. Granted, you're not, because something bigger than you is, but you're the one that has to face it. You're the one that's going through it. And so instead of it being an hour of therapy of like, what do I feel the need to talk about? It's like, oh, now this is coming up for me. What am I going to do about it? You know what I mean? And so that's really the essence of the spiritual awakening, is what is being brought to my attention right now, because I'm finally ready to release it. I'm finally ready to look at it in a different perspective. I'm finally ready to say, enough is enough. I don't want to live that paradigm anymore. It doesn't fit me. I want more. I want to be able to have more. And that's another part of it as well, is, you know, a lot of people, they love to do manifesting, and because TikTok is making spirituality so cliche instead of what it actually is, If you're trying to like manifest wealth or manifest the love of your life, you can't do that without first going through the things that have set you back from doing it to begin with. So with the spiritual awakening, if your life path is to go on to help others, or if your life path is simply, you know, you can still have a normal person job, but you're just meant to, you know, purge the stuff because it's in your lineage, whatever the case may be, you're going to learn who you are so that you could go on to impact other people. And so even though you feel like you're going crazy and it's this fifth dimensional type of stuff, it's really not. It's really more, it really does boil down to psychology. What have you learned that doesn't serve you? What did you settle for that you believed was impossible to get more than? Like, love is such a big one. How many times do we see people dating people that fill a void instead of actually being what it is that they want and what they need? A lot of times we feel like, and society pushes this on us, and even in the movies that I love so much, the rom-coms, right? It's two people that are codependent that end up together almost always. It's never two healthy people that choose each other. And that is something that society at large has taught us, which is why this spiritual awakening right now that's happening on a grand scale is so big. It's because we need to unlearn this. We are, Spirit, give me a better terminology for this. We're up leveling as a society at large, like globally speaking. I know you're seeing it. You watch the news, you hear about people that you never thought would break up or breaking up, people that are getting outed for doing really messed up stuff, people that are all of a sudden admitting they have mental health issues that are big in the spotlight. I don't know why, but Selena Gomez is popping up in my head. She is bipolar, you know, and then you got Ariana Grande, who people worship, right? But she can't keep her relationships together. It's because we don't know ourselves. And if we don't know ourselves, then we can't be the best versions of ourselves. And spiritual awakenings are you coming home to yourself to be the best version. And so as you're going through this and you're having these days where you're like, I can't leave the couch, I can't leave my house, I'm so sad, I don't know why I'm depressed, I'm mad about something that happened from 5 years ago, I'm pissed about this ex that I was with for 3 years and I'm over it, but for some reason I'm angry and I don't even know why I'm angry. Well, think about when that was really going on, that actual moment in time when it was happening for you. Did you allow yourself to be angry, or did you push it down? You probably pushed it down, right? Because you had to survive, or you didn't want to deal with it. You went with the avoidance, right? So really, it just boils down to, and I know that I'm simplifying it, but I want you guys to understand it from a psychological standpoint, because it's harder to argue with spiritual awakening when you can see how it coincides with logic, and it coincides with therapy, and it coincides with science, and it coincides with a lot of things that have been proven to be true, so that you don't have to feel crazy. You are simply releasing the dead weight that you've kept as a story that you've been telling yourself that limits you from having more and going after what you want and being who you truly want to be. Because it's always the narrative in our mind, right? I can't exercise all day well, not all day, but like I can't exercise for a couple hours every day. I don't have the energy for that. Well, whatever you believe is true. If you believe you can't, then you can't. If you believe you can, then you can. And so with spiritual awakenings, it's really just you going, okay, what is this telling me about myself? And eventually it becomes a life hack to the point where you won't even get triggered by people anymore. You won't get triggered by things anymore. You will for a second, but instead of you going and lashing out and then being like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, now I need to learn, you'll literally get to a point where someone will piss you off, someone will trigger you, and you'll go, I need to walk away from this, but what is this telling me about myself? And you'll realize that the power was always within you. You were always in control of your life. You were always capable of achieving everything you wanted to achieve. You were always capable of having the relationship you wanted to have. You were always capable of getting that dream job that really ignites the fire within you. It's just that we have all of these limiting beliefs and all of these limiting stories that we tell ourselves that we've all been through, because prior to right now in this time in history, it wasn't normal, right? I mean, a couple of decades ago, women couldn't have their own jobs, their own bank accounts, they couldn't vote. People of color had to, walk, and Martin Luther King Jr. had to fight for their rights. Like, we are not as evolved as we think we are. I mean, mental health wasn't talked about this often until the lockdown happened. And so we need to remember that we're not that advanced as we'd like to believe, that society likes to pretend that we are. We're not. Because if we were, you'd have a boss that goes, oh, your mental health isn't good today? All right, don't come to work today. Take care of yourself first. We're not there yet. We're still in that masculine energy of you only matter with how much hard You would think Mercury's in retrograde. I know it's coming soon, but I've been talking like this for days now. I think it's the full moon. But anyway, you're going to reach these moments where you're like, oh, that's not acceptable. And the problem that a lot of people have with spiritual awakening is they feel like they're crazy because other people don't get it, right? And so we think we're crazy because, like, we see things in color now and everybody else is still seeing things in black and white. And then you can gaslight yourself and be like, well, maybe I'm crazy because the rest of the world's not catching up. Well, they will catch up in their own time because you have a ripple effect. You will impact the people around you. Think about when you've changed and you learned a lesson from something that was really painful, and then you shared it with a friend or a family member who was going through something similar, and then they were like, oh wow, I never looked at it like that, thank you. You know what I mean? So don't downplay what it is that you're going through, because the people that are spirit funny, the people that are meant to learn, I just keep hearing the girls that get it, and the girls that don't like I got sassy spirit guides, my bad. But it's just realizing that some people are meant to suffer. It's part of the game. You have to understand that, yes, this is basically like the Matrix. It's like the Truman Show. It's like a video game. And the moment you understand the life hacks is the moment it gets easier for you to understand where to go next, how to do things next. It's learning to follow your inner compass over the head that is just the accumulation of all of your experiences up until this moment. Your brain is running on a primal defense mechanism. It's trying to find things to be afraid of so that it can protect you. It's trying to keep you safe. It's not trying to help you build new creations, because imagination comes from source. 11:11 when I said that. Imagination comes from source. It comes from having nothing in your mind so that something can pop into it, right? But when we're constantly going and worrying about all these little things that we coexist with on a daily basis of, like, I need a coffee in order to function, and I need to keep this really crappy job that makes me so unbelievably miserable, and I refuse to look for a different plan or path because this is easier than taking a leap of faith. Or I'm staying in this dead-end relationship of 5 years because what if when I leave they get better and then someone else gets that better you know what I mean? It's all these limiting beliefs and dynamics that we've had our whole lives because we didn't think we could have more. Spiritual awakening is like, it's like what, like I'm seeing a building like just fall down, like demolition type style. It's like, this foundation did not work. Now we're understanding that it does not work. How do we need to change ourselves in order to be the version of us that can make these dreams work, that can get this relationship? I mean, how do you expect yourself to get an unconditional love if you don't unconditionally love yourself, or if you're not open to it? You know what I mean? Like, you can't have a relationship with someone that's going to pour into you if you constantly beat on yourself. You're going to attract someone that mirrors that until you realize, oh, I don't want this anymore, and so I got to show it to myself. That's what a spiritual awakening is. It's you learning about yourself while simultaneously learning about the world around you, and also realizing that the world around you has a lot of flawed beliefs and a lot of limitations. And so you are unraveling that to become the best version of yourself that you didn't think possible. So as you're going through these days where you're incredibly drained, you don't understand why, you've slept 12 hours, well, you were probably healing something that you didn't even realize you were working through. And then you feel a little bit lighter, and then you're like, why do I feel a little bit lighter? But then you start to look at things differently. And then the dynamics of relationships that you used to have don't work for you anymore. You can't make excuses for emotionally unavailable men, for my case, that would be like, I just want to see where things go. And then 6 months later, they're still not budging. They just want to have their cake and eat it too. You know what I mean? It's you realizing your worth. It's you realizing what you're capable of and not putting a cap on that. It's you realizing that all of these negatives in your mind are merely things that are holding you back from opportunity, from new, from happiness, from joy, from prosperity. It's you coming home to yourself for good, with tools that will help you moving forward and tools that will help those around you if they so choose to follow suit. This was long, so I'm going to leave it at this because this is this could be a course. Honestly, I probably should try to make a course because it would probably be easier. But let me know what you guys want more of down in the comments in terms of spiritual awakening, because I really wanted to get like the whole purpose more so than like the particulars, because you're going to go through some wild rides that, listen, you're not going to understand. It's not going to make any sense to you until you're out of it. You're going to go down this rabbit hole of like, I'm crying about an ex when I was 6. I'm crying about how my mom treated me when I was 12. I'm crying about how I don't play sports anymore. Why don't I play sports anymore? I'm sad about that. And you're just going to deep dive into yourself, and you're going to deep dive into the layers of what made you who you are today. And you're going to take a real honest look and go, but does that define who I want to be? Does that define where I want to go next? Does that define the joy and prosperity that I want to see moving forward? And if the version of me today couldn't master that, how do I need to change in order to become the best version of me so that I can begin to have these more opportune times in my life where I have someone that loves me unconditionally and I have a job that feels more like it's not even work. You know what I mean? It's diving into yourself to hear all of the limiting beliefs that have been thrown on you by others that have now become your voice. It's learning about all the relationship dynamics that you've been through and what that tells you about yourself. It's learning about all of the reasons you said no to yourself and coming back home to yourself. It's you coming back to you. And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be ugly sometimes. But then on other days, the more important days after you've done the work, you're going to see life in a whole new way. You're going to look at birds chirping and be wowed. Like there's not going to be words for it. You're going to look at grass and trees and you're going to feel joy like you've never felt it before in the present moment. Even though you have nothing to be proud of or excited for, you're just going to enjoy life because, again, you're pulling off all of those limiting beliefs that tell you that until I reach this milestone, or until I get that relationship, or until this, until that, it's you going, enough is enough. I'm inherently worthy. I deserve good things. And in order to get all of those good things, I've got to take an honest and hard look at myself, be reflective, and understand what's going on. And that's kind of where spirit takes over and not you, because it's going to come out when it's meant to come out. It's not going to come out if you're not ready. And to sum it up, I'll give you another example, because this is kind of like spiritual awakening kind of summed up with one big wound of my own. So I had a wound around a parent figure, and I'll leave it at that. And I went through all of the stages of grief. I first went through sadness. How could you do all these things to me knowing that it would hurt my feelings and you never once apologized? Then I went through anger. Oh my God, how could you treat me that way? How do you not feel guilty? How do you never apologize? How do you not try to do better for me? All the anger. And then eventually I reached acceptance. And that's one thing that I need to also add into, so I apologize. I feel like spirituality kind of screws us a little bit when they all kind of preach you got to reach a state of forgiveness, and I think mental health contributes to that too, therapists and stuff, although I've talked to therapists that do agree with my viewpoint on this. It's not necessarily forgiveness, because that kind of feels like you're ignoring what they've done, right? It's not that. It's reaching a place of acceptance and indifference. It's reaching a place of like, yeah, that happened. There's nothing I can do about it. They're never going to apologize. But the only person still stabbing the knife in my heart is me. And that's the life hack that you're going to get from the spiritual awakenings that you're going through. Is that regardless of all of those stories that you've told yourself from the past, you could never get that job. You'll never amount to nothing. You'll never be loved by your parents. You'll never have a healthy relationship. It's you looking at those and going, why do I believe that? What do I got to do in order to make that change? And that's where spiritual awakening really takes over. That's when the universe throws you what I just showed you with the curveball of going through the stages of grief, honoring what you've been through, honoring your own emotions, and then eventually, just like that staircase, because I had to go through the sadness part, and then I thought I was over it. I wasn't over it. Then I went through the anger part, and then I was like, okay, now I've got to be over it. Wasn't over it, little more anger, boom, acceptance. And I was like, wait, what? I never thought I'd reach this point. I thought I'd be angry forever. So you have to understand that you just got to flow with the currents. There is no, because I was like this, I have a lot of Virgo placements, so respect if you're a Virgo or have Virgo placements. But I was like, I just want a textbook. Tell me what I got to do, and I will do it. It's not like that. You got to just follow the flow. You got to follow whatever it is that's meant to come up for you, because whatever's going on up here, up above, they know more than we do. So when you're ready, it's going to come up for you to deal with, to heal. Let those feelings flow. If you got to cry, let yourself cry. If you have to be angry, let yourself be angry. tune into those emotions because it's time. It's the emotions you've ignored from the past that are still there. Remember, energy does not leave. So now it's time. You're looking at it from a fresh set of eyes. You cry it out, you get angry, honor whatever emotions you're feeling, and then just like a wave, it goes, it's gone. So follow that, because you're following this weird, like I'm seeing Alice in Wonderland, you're following this weird path right back home to yourself. That is what a spiritual awakening is. There's a lot of technicalities and stuff. I can do a part 2 if you let me know down in the comments. I can cover other stuff. If what you've been through, let me know down in the comments as well. And then maybe I can kind of go from there on an idea of what a part 2 would look like. But I wanted you to understand the fuller picture of what's really going on, the magnitude of what's really going on, so that when you're going through these darker days, you can understand the why and how it's really going to pay off for you in the future, when you can actually get to a place like I did of acceptance, where you accept that people have done you dirty. I've accepted a lot of relationships that I never thought I'd be okay with, where it's like, wow, you treated me like that, you did me dirty like that, oh, that's messed up. And now I'm at a place where it's like, you taught me a lot of things, and I'm really grateful, because had it not been for you hurting me, I wouldn't have been so determined to help other people. Had it not been for you disrespecting me, I wouldn't have gone in to go, okay, how do I disrespect myself and then learn to love myself? You will start to see people as, what are you teaching me about me? You will bring it back inwards. You won't go, oh, you're taking me out of my power. Oh, you're breaking my heart. Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. No, it's, you're teaching me about myself. What do I learn from this? And that is where the freedom comes in. And that is where you get to be your best self. So I hope that this made sense. Like I said, I can really dig into it. Let me know, and I can make a part 2. So let me know down in the comments. I know this was long. I'm glad that you bared with me. If you did, let me know in the comments. But I'm going to leave it at this. If you want a part 2, let me know. I got you. But as always, it really just boils down to you coming home to the best version of yourself. And what is that going to take? What do we need to remove? What layers are holding us back from the best version of ourselves? And then we just kind of wait for the universe to show us so that we can release it, and then we can move forward to the next stage. It's just like the chapters of our life leading up to this moment. Now these are new chapters, and it's chapters leading us back to ourselves. And how beautiful is that? So I'm going to leave it at this. I love you guys so much. If this video was helpful, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the above, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Love you guys so much, besties. You got this. Bye, guys.